Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to call to order our strategic planning meeting for September 15th. And we have the first item on our agenda, Councilwoman Coonrod. That is under your name, ma'am. Are you prepared to speak on that item at this time?
Sure.
Or do we need to keep that on the agenda for another week? It is the non-owner occupied STVR.
I'm prepared to speak.
So all you have the floor.
So the purpose of this amendment to the short-term vacation run is that a lot of people in District 9 have been complaining a lot about the non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals. And of course, it could be looked at as if it's a myth because people are saying, well, it's the non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals are taking up the housing stock for affordable housing. And that has been the issue. And you all know, as well as I know, when it comes to the inner city communities, trying to educate them on what affordable housing truly is and what that looks like, it's like running into a brick wall. So I got with Phil about the legislation that they passed in Nashville. And pretty much what Nashville done is that they restricted the use of non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals based on the zip codes. So here with us, I'm simply asking if we could reduce that amount by October the 30th, owner occupied only within the short-term vacation ordinance, but it preserves the right of property owners who currently operate non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals. So those individuals will continue to be able to operate, but any new applications in the area, then no, they won't be accepted. Or, you know, of course, it's the discretion of the city council if they say, hey, well, this person is a good fit, whatever it is that you feel like he should be able to operate. But I just merely want to put some parameters in place that constituents will feel comfortable with. They'll feel safe in saying, okay, well, our neighborhoods are protected. We don't have blocks just with houses sitting idle, waiting to be rented for a short-term vacation room.
Let me ask a quick question. So you're saying for the entire STVR district to
Yes.
no longer allow non-owner occupied unless, I guess, an appeal is made to the city council for approval?
Correct. But the ones that are currently operating, they will still be able to function. Yes.
Yeah, just no new. Okay. Is this in the form of legislation at this time? Councilwoman, you want to go ahead and introduce?
Yes.
Okay.
Phil, he sent it out to council members, I think, last week.
Yes, sir.
When do we want to get?
And yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
When do we want to put it on the agenda? If it is something that has been sent out, we can put it on for 2 weeks from today. We have discussed it. I don't think it needs to go through legislative, but we can discuss it again in an agenda session if necessary. Does that work for you, Councilwoman?
Yes, that works for me. Thank you.
Phil, will you be sure to get it on 2 weeks out, please?
Yes, sir, will. And the provisions of the major change in here is mainly under section 11.513 in the code, and we have mirrored the language that the folks in Nashville had in that provision over there. Theirs is a little bit different, as you said, because they have their postal districts, but here we have a specific defined area for the short-term vacation rental district, and the effective date on this would be that there would not be any new short-term rentals issued for non-owner occupieds after October 30th, 2020, if this legislation passes.
Okay. I do have a couple of hands. Just the other thing, Councilwoman, I don't know if you have a second on your legislation, but.
I second.
Okay. Councilwoman Burrs, Phil, will you put Councilwoman Burrs as a co-sponsor? Yes. All right. Councilman Mitchell, I see your hand, sir.
I think Councilperson Burrs' hand was up.
Yeah, I had a question too.
Okay. Councilwoman?
Yeah, just for clarification, I think you cleared it up, Chair. Councilwoman, this pertains only to the current district, and it's across the whole current district, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sure, I have no problem co-sponsoring that with you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Mitchell, you still have a hand up, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions or opinions, maybe. What I'm hearing, I think, is that now if someone applies for a non-owner occupied from here on out, they will appeal, and every one of them will go to council, whether there's objections or not. Is that Mr. Attorney? I heard about an appeal process. I don't see what would stop a non-owner occupied person from going, I can't go that route. I can apply, be turned down because of the law, but now I will appeal.
The provisions do not allow anyone to be able to operate a non-owner occupied after a certain period of time. Those people that are effectively grandfathered in, that have been operating in a non-owner occupied status, could continue to do so as long as they renew their permit annually, but other individuals would not be qualified unless they were owner occupied.
Okay, so what we're saying is, if you want to be owner occupied, go ahead. Are we changing the rules because owner occupied? Do we even have a process where people could object to owner occupied?
If they are turned down, I thought there was still an application review on them, but that's the only issue here. It's under 513. If you all want me to tweak some of that language, I can look at it. But that is the section that requires for the type of review that is involved, and it has been heavier for non-owner occupieds to begin with here. But it specifically is saying that they would not be eligible after October 30th of 2020 for any new non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals other than those that are currently existing.
Okay, well, thank you. For the sake of the conversation in a couple of weeks, I would like to maybe look at something a little bit different rather than shutting everybody out that wants to operate a business that owns property. I fully understand that right now people are buying places specifically to go into business for short-term vacation rentals. And I have heard a lot of that concern throughout the district. My biggest concern would really, rather than just saying nobody else can do it, I have a concern of multi-family housing, which seems to be trending towards, you build 9 or 10 units in a multifamily apartment, let's say apartment, condo, whatever you want to call it, whatever's working for someone right now. And I think next week we got 2 coming up that are basically the same complex. And I don't think we have any limitations on that. And I know when we originally spoke about this, we were talking about, we don't want multifamily becoming a hotel. And so with no restrictions on that, I guess if we move forward and pass this legislation of Councilperson Coonrod, that eliminates that worry. I would be hesitant to support it based on saying that no one else can go into business of a non-owner occupied dwelling. But I am concerned, very concerned about the trend of someone builds 20 units, whether they build them to be condos and if they're not selling, or someone goes and buys and says, I'm going to turn this into a short-term, they're buying it because they want to turn it into a short-term vacation rental. And all of a sudden you got 10 or 11 units in a 20-unit multifamily thing, this short-term vacation rental. That might as well be a hotel. So that's the main concern I have with the law right now. I'm hesitant, but I'll be more than willing to participate in the discussion in a couple of weeks. I'm more than hesitant on saying no one else can do it. Thank you.
We tried to at least deal with some of that issue under 11-511-0 in ordinance December of last year. And it does say that they cannot have more than 2 short-term vacation rentals certificates in any multifamily dwelling. So that gives you a little bit of help in that regard on that provision. If we need to talk about that again, we can do that, but we've got some limitation on that number right now.
Okay, all right. Well, I look forward to the conversation.
Yes.
Thank you, Councilperson Coonrod, for introducing it.
Thank you. Councilman Byrd, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Definitely have a little hesitation, but I do like what you're doing, Councilwoman Coonrod, because we do need some balance there. You go one way too far, one way the other way too far, you can have chaos. So I do agree and understand that we do need some balance there. How that looks, I don't know. So I look forward to definitely having a conversation. Phil, what type of grace period is there for the non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals, say if it comes out for you to renew, how does that work when the letter goes out or when the time for you to renew? If a person was to miss that renewal deadline, do they have a grace period of so many days to renew before we shut them completely down?
Normally, they need to do their annual renewals, and it looks like the provisions on here is that normally it would occur before October the 30th of each year. And as long as they do that within that time frame, they would be fine. If they don't do that within the proper time frame, that could be a reason for them having their short-term rental revoked at that location, or they just didn't renew it timely. So we need to be specific about the timing. But right now in the ordinance, it's got everything down as October 30th of 2020.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Phil, would you do me a favor and resend that around?
I will.
Just so that everybody has it fresh in their inbox.
If it'll help, we'll send a copy that has got red line and blue line around.
That'd be great.
I'll let you see what it is currently.
That'd be great.
I will.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. And if you all have any additional questions or, would like to see, any additional input in it, if we can get those questions sent in so we can go ahead and get it taken care of on the legislation part. I too have some hesitations as well, but at the end of the day, it's about making sure that my constituents are getting the needs, their concerns addressed. And that's what I want to make sure that I'm doing. I mean, I'm very supportive of short-term vacation rental, and we have council people that operate it as well now. And I have friends that are non-owner occupied doing it. But at the end of the day, I can't have these units sitting idle, grass up, overgrown, litter everywhere when they don't have tenants in these properties, when they could be used for other sources, housing and different things like that. So if we can just be ahead of it, we can get your input put into the legislation. I will hope that we can, pass it for the better of our community. Thank you.
All right.
And this is for 929, correct, for first reading?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
All right. Seeing no further hands, let's move on. Takes us into other business. We have pending presentations, our education session, new 311 app we are going to get a demo of in a strategic planning meeting. GARE and racial equity training. This is on here for Councilwoman Coonrod, Councilman Mitchell. I don't have a status next to this one. I don't recall last week if I believe Councilwoman Coonrod couldn't join us at this time last week. So I don't know if there is an update on this item. Is anybody familiar with any status updates for this one? Councilwoman Coonrod?
So Beverly, she's working with the dates that council said that we weren't available. And then she's working with Gare to get new dates so she can present those dates.
Great. Okay. So we are in a waiting period just to find out what the date is.
Right.
Great. Thank you. And then pending legislative matters, Councilman Ledford, you were the only one currently with a piece of legislation here. Do you have a status update for the council? Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Councilman Mitchell, I didn't see your hand.
That was a late hand. I'm sorry. I just would like an explanation as well as a date when we come up with one that what is going to be included in that training.
Sure.
I don't know if Councilperson Coonrod knows that, or I know that Beverly was working on some things, but that's as far as I know.
All right. We'll make sure to get them both, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple of tweaks working with Phil on I need to get with, but I do have the copy pretty much ready to go. I would like to be bold on this. We need to be bold on a couple of other things in relation to planning and zoning. But this one, if you don't mind, I would like to go ahead and schedule it for legislative committee next Tuesday. And that will push myself and Phil's office to get the last minute tweaks on this. This might be a good time to mention that we held a press conference today, a joint one with United Way, Commissioner Smedley and I, and United Way, in promoting 211. for tornado relief in the East Brainerd area, covering a lot of different areas. But we have finally designated a sole source, a dedicated staff person that will be taking the phone calls, and nobody will be turned away. And there's a tremendous amount of help still being offered by so many organizations from around the country. So I think this resolution will be also a big help to a lot of people in the tornado ravaged areas. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Nicole, will you go ahead and make sure that we've got a legislative committee to hear the piece of legislation for next Tuesday? And pending, how soon, Councilman, do you think everybody will be able to see that? Will it be next Tuesday, or will we be able to see what that looks like at an earlier time?
No, it's a great question. I appreciate that. Phil, let's you and I work hard on this piece and get this ready to go out by Friday.
Sure, get it done.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you,
that'd
sir.
be great. Thank you. And Phil, once it's ready, if you would send that, if you would be the one to circulate that around, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Councilman Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question. Of course, we've been dealing with this in planning and zoning, and I will take the opportunity to question Councilman Ledford on, once again, the term steep slopes has disappeared from our strategic planning, and I'm just wondering where it is, where it went, where is it going?
So the vegetation component, that's a really great question, and I appreciate you bringing it back up. So that was left for an opinion, for review by LDO and a review by RPA. And to be honest with you, Councilman, it's been a little difficult to get a response or even an opinion on, because it's something that is new and we have not seen before. And I'm just going to be frank with you. I'm about to the point where I think it is simple enough that people can figure it out, of just bringing it forward and introducing it and let this council see it. You've seen the review of it in our committee report. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory. It has an enforcement component based on a CO approval. It's just math. People can figure this out. So I think that we're at a tipping point where we need to do something, and I think that's about where I'm at to bring it forward. So I appreciate you bringing that forward. Again, thank you for your interest. You've been an inspiration, and I appreciate your support.
An inspiration, I mean a pain.
Well, you know what?
I heard.
Sometimes it's one and the same, and the result is we get it done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Gilbert?
And just to piggyback on Councilman Mitchell's conversation, Darren, the low-hanging fruit, something that I think we can put in place. For an example, if we have violations now that people are breaking, there's no teeth there, so they just break it and keep on moving, business as usual. I think that the home builders, when I heard them speak, there were 4 we have existing rules and guidelines, but we just didn't have no teeth in it. So could we not just push forward to start the teeth so that would help with some of the situations in some of our communities?
Well, I think you're exactly right. Now, I will stop right there and ask Phil a question, though. Phil, when it comes to LDO and enforcement, I don't think that's zoning. Does that go into economic and community development?
The enforcement people on building permits are in the Economic and Community Development Department.
Okay, and that's
they would be actually issuing citations to court if that.
Okay, so yeah, so that's where my brain goes. When you say that, I go, well, I mean, I'm not trying to shuck that off at all, but I look at that and I go, that's Economic and Community Development Office. That doesn't fall under RPA necessarily and into Planning and Zoning Committee. So I would be supportive in talking about that enforcement piece if the chairman of that committee would chime in and let me know their thoughts. And I apologize for putting anybody on the spot.
If I may, Mr. Chair, no, I have no problem with that, setting up discussions on that, so we can get with the chairman and get some more information, so when it does come before community, it would be verbal discussion about what's already exists and how we can make it better. So in answer to your question, I would be more than happy to set up an Economic and Community Development Committee meeting to further discuss it.
Thank you, sir.
I think we have a plan.
Yeah,
Thank you, Councilman.
Chairman.
thank you.
Councilman Ledford, one last question. Not to make as light of it, but Councilman Mitchell brings up a good point in that it disappeared, and I think it might be to the point where we're not 100% clear on what it is anymore.
Sure.
Is there legislation or at least a draft that you can pass around or send to the council so that we're all aware specifically about the vegetation component to it?
Absolutely. I will be glad to get with Phil and make sure that gets around. It will be basically the proposal that we heard in committee. And Phil, you and I need to get together offline and figure out how to turn that into something that can be presented either as an ordinance or a resolution. I'm guessing it's a resolution at this point.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Phil,
I
if
have
you
my
would just get the
assignments.
language. Sorry, Councilman.
Oh, I said I have my assignments, and I appreciate everybody. We've all been obviously very concerned about this. It has gone on for quite a while. It's interesting because we want to do things, and then when we hand it off for the final review or to get it into a format that is ready to come, that process unfortunately seems to be a very long one in government, and it's certainly not as efficient as I would like it to be.
All right, thank you, sir. And Phil, yeah, if you would just circulate the content around again so everybody's familiar with it.
Okay.
Councilman Mitchell, is that a new hand, sir?
Yes, it is, sir. And I'm very thankful for the hard work that Councilman Ledford has done, but I think he's come across something that I would like to make a motion to move this, because we are really past planning and zoning. And I think we've all, or maybe not all of us, but some of us have reached out to John Bridger, and there has been a reluctance there in him feeling that planning is not the right place for this to happen. So I'd like to make a motion that this bill, after we receive what it is right now, move over to Economic and Community Development Committee. And let's see if we could, because this is, I'll go back to the phase 3. I think this is mostly about phase 3, and we have a phase 2 and a phase 1 to deal with also. So I would like to, make a motion that this moves into Economic and Community Development Committee.
I think that's a great idea, sir.
Yeah, I agree, especially when we're dealing with LDO.
You have a second for me, Councilman Mitchell.
Mr. Attorney, do we need to have a second on that motion? Do we need to voice, or what do we do?
The chair can put legislation into any committee he so chooses, he or she chooses. So it's not really a vote. I think the legislation, when it is ready, just needs to be assigned to ECD.
Yeah. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Coonrod, I see your hand, but I also saw Lydia waving at us, and I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a problem that we needed to deal with. Is everything okay?
Thank you. I didn't know if you wanted me to bring Donna Williams in. She has her hand raised.
Yeah.
Donna, let's get Councilwoman Coonrod, and then we'll bring Donna in. Or go ahead and bring her in, but Councilwoman Coonrod, go ahead.
You could bring her in first. I was just going to notify you that she had her hand raised,
okay.
But then I wanted to say something afterwards.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, Ms. Williams.
Hello, Council. I apologize for this confusion. I think that we are, our desire is to serve your intent, and there seems to be some confusion on our side as to what problem we're trying to solve. So just for clarity for those folks who may be watching and unaware, the Land Development Office is inside ECD. So anything related to the Land Development Office is inside my department. So if there's anything that's needed from my department, I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. We work very closely with RPA, which you all know, but some people who are watching may not know. RPA is a county and a city agency. The city side of RPA, which is John Bridger, and I work super closely together. John's folks are trained professionals at writing zoning code. Our folks, generally speaking, enforce code. And when we are enforcing code, what we are enforcing is legislation, either state legislation or city legislation, which is architected by this council. So I think we're unclear collectively, those of us in the administration, LDO, RPA, as to what problem we're trying to solve so that we can solve that problem. And so we can offer to you the existing legislation at the state level or the city level that we are obligated to enforce. And if any of those rules, regulation, laws need to be changed to solve the problem at hand, we are happy to do that. We would work with the city attorney to make those changes. But what our team does is enforce existing state and city ordinances, laws, etc. If those that are currently in force don't answer or solve the problem at hand, then we would all work together to the extent that we can to change those, whether that's at a state level or at a local level. So we are happy to assist any way we can, but I do want to emphasize, if it has anything to do with the Land Development Office, that is in my department. And Richard Beelan and I are happy to work with our staff to get those issues resolved.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you. I just, Lefford, I am very appreciative of you. I see you and your efforts and everything that you're trying to do to make sure that District 4 is back up and thriving. Because when I ride through there now, like I just get really sad, especially once you get past the YMCA and then you go past the East Brainerd area. Like, it's still devastating. It is. And but my question to Ms. Donna, because I don't want to get emotional just thinking about it, you know, it's awful. So the FEMA funds that we applied for, and to my understanding, when I spoke to FEMA, if we say as a city government, we'll take the funds and then we'll get the work done versus FEMA keeping it and hiring people to go out there to do the work, how much funding did we get for tornado rebuilding? And have we spent all of those dollars? And did it go to, because East Brainerd had a significant amount of damage. How much have went to that area? Did all the other areas have the thing? Because I still got areas in Eastdale that we hadn't even picked up. And so just want to see where did the money go? Did we use it for this exact thing? Or did we put the money somewhere else for use?
Councilwoman Coonrod, I can't answer that because that's separate and apart from what I thought we were talking about. But I know that Mara or Daisy or someone who is more familiar with that can address that for you.
Okay, I'll get with them.
Councilwoman, do you want to get an answer to that right now, or do you want to hear back?
I want to know, you know, what happened to the money that we received? Like, why isn't this money being poured into fixing it, to rebuilding?
Miss Lydia, will you see if Miss Sullivan might be available, please?
I will do that.
See if she can answer. While you're bringing her in, Phil, I see your hand up. Was that about this topic, or did you need something else?
I was going to give you a little bit other information here in connection with the question that you were asking about land development. Land development would be involved anytime there is a permit or a zoning issue that might be coming up as to whether something is properly located. So you've got a sort of a multifaceted question here when you talk about steep slopes and floodplains involved. There's also another dimension to this process regarding the aspect of stormwater control measures that might be involved as well. And unfortunately, I think those are under public works. So you got both the public works aspect, the economic and community development, and the RPA aspect, and how this goes together. That's one of the reasons it's sort of a difficult matter to get under your control.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Sullivan, did you hear Councilwoman Coonrod's question?
I did, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, thank you for that. Hello, Councilwoman Coonrod. We are still in the process of working through the FEMA regulations, and we have a whole big report that we can give you that is being handled and spearheaded by Destiny Richardson and Mr. Justin Steinman in our Strategic Capital Planning Office, and I can get them to give the whole council a follow-up report on where we are with each part of the FEMA funding for the tornado-related event.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. We might it might be next week before I can get you that full report, but I might. I'll see how fast I can get it for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But, and the reason for my question is, as we know, we still waiting on what happened to the FEMA dollars that supposed to went towards the outside of the Wilcox Tunnel, because FEMA telling a different story from what administration have told about that money. So just want to make sure that if we apply for funding for a tornado rebuilding, we need to make sure that it's applied in these areas, because I don't know if you still frequent that area or not, but it's.
I do. And
yeah.
Yeah. And if FEMA has said a different, and I'm so sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize.
I mean, I'm used to it by now. It's okay.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to.
And, I just, I don't live in District 4, but I have family and friends that live out there, and it's just rather devastating. And even when I'm riding through my neighborhood that I live in, I still have stuff that's undone. Public Works hadn't picked up. It's still stuff everywhere, debris. And, I can't just say, well, because I live in the inner city community that this happening to, because when I ride out the East Brainerd and still see the same thing that's out there, like I want to know, what's happening, why we haven't even just picked up the small stuff that we can take care of now outside of FEMA dollars that's not getting done. I mean, we cleared the roads, but on the sides of the roads, we still got trash. We got, branches and all kind of stuff, roofings and all kind of stuff that's happening in District 4 and Eastdale, and, different places where the tornado just came through. I mean, it's devastating. And for a city that says that, we want to make sure that every citizen thrive, it takes another, I have a different look about that statement when I'm riding through my city. But thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions. I look forward to the information that you're able to provide.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to. We'll give you a full report on the answers that we've gotten from FEMA so far. I'm sorry if you've gotten different ones about the Wilcox Tunnel, et cetera, but we'll go back to that flooding event as well, and we'll give you that report, and we'll give you a report on how many tons of debris we have picked up, which is an amazing number. And it continues to grow as people are still cleaning up their area. So thank you,
Ms. Sullivan.
for feedback.
Councilman Ledford, I see your hand.
Yes, sir. Let me make a couple quick points, and I appreciate my colleague so much down there. She's on my screen. She's on the bottom, but Councilwoman Coonrod, if you'd like to get together, I'd like to see if there's areas in your district, and I'm glad that you said that, because that's why we're here to talk about this, and we will talk about it again very soon. There's areas that this legislation would benefit your community. I am more than willing and very happy to include any areas that were touched by the tornado, number one. Number two, based on what you were saying, these efforts in calling 211 through the United Way, there is a tremendous amount of folks out there still from out of town even willing to come in and do some work. So if the message, I could use this platform here today, and just as we did today with the press conference, is that people will call 211 for any area, not just East Brainerd, but if you're affected by the tornado and have projects, they're even offering, like, so for example, I heard today Samaritan's Purse is willing to build homes. I mean, this is serious. This 211 is a very, very incredible resource for us in East Brainerd. And I want to take the third part, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank the city openly and publicly for what they have done in our area. I know that they worked 7 days a week and around the clock to help us recover and remove a tremendous amount, records amount of debris. And it's just not an easy task. We're 5 months down the road from this isn't going to be cleaned up overnight. I understand that, and that's why I keep telling people everywhere I can that we'll get through this together, and we'll do better. But we're going to do it one step at a time. And I appreciate everyone's help and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. All right. Ms. Sullivan, Ms. Williams, thank you very much. We'll move on. Next item on our strategic planning board appointments. I hadn't heard that we have new ones there, so everybody do your best to get those filled. Administrative items for future consideration. Has everybody had a chance to look at those? I know there are quite a few that are on there. I don't know if anybody had any question on those items at this time.
Mr. Chair, we're going to touch the CDOT and Public Works in the committee meeting today. Again, if you have questions about those, don't expect an answer today necessarily, but we'll get those answered for you.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I know most of these are ECD, if I'm not mistaken, that are on here. So, Councilwoman Burrs?
Yeah, under finance, we've already addressed and are working on that first one about the interlocal agreement.
Yes.
So that probably needs to come off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Seeing no other hands on that item, let's keep moving on. We've got council agenda for today. We will be having the Public Works and Transportation Committee and ECD Committee with the chamber presentation. Are there any questions or issues that need to be brought up at this time about today's agenda? And knowing that we will open the 6 p.m. meeting this evening with the public hearing on the Operations and Capital Budget amendments. The public hearing should be catered specifically toward those amendments, but it is open for people to sign up and speak, just like when we did our budget hearings before. And that'll be at the beginning of the 6 o'clock. All right, seeing no hands on this week. Anything on next week? I see no committees for next week. We are going to have a department report by CDOT. And we do have one form-based code appeal that we'll be looking at next week as well. Any other questions? Councilman Gilbert, sir?
We're not on yet the agenda for next week, correct?
Yes, sir. If you have anything, please.
Well, I've got a question for Phil. On 6, on finance, could the school situation versus the page missing could be separated?
Yes.
You know, because individual have agrees with one of them but not the other. Could it be separated so that we can vote differently?
Can I hear that again on finance?
Yeah.
On finance A, we have the 1.5 going towards the school system was a great idea. Then you also have the page that was left in. I would like to get that one separated.
Sure.
Yeah,
right.
yes, sir. If y'all make a motion to separate them out here during the discussions that you have, we can create another version for you here. Those both items have been noticed and put in the paper to be discussed by the council on a public hearing tonight and then next week. So you can do that after your public hearing if you wish.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Phil, just for clarification for Councilman Gilbert, we need to separate those at the 6 p.m. meeting?
Yes, sir. Should do
Okay.
it at the 6 p.m. meeting so that it's after the public hearing. Yes.
Okay. If you would just be prepared, Phil, for the right language. I don't want to just say break this sentence in half. We do need to make sure that the language is clear if it does get separated to reread each one so that it's clear that they are separate.
Okay, I will.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Yes.
Councilman. Councilwoman Burrs, is that a new hand, ma'am?
Yes, sir, it is. Do you all also want, and that's a very good point, Russell. That's a great point. As far as B is concerned, there are two totally different topics. Is the council okay with keeping them together, or do you want that separated as well?
I'd rather separate myself.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. I agree.
Got both of those, Phil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're saying, and I think it's right, Russell, that not to join in two different topics.
Right.
And I agree, we've done the same thing apparently with B.
Is that it, Councilwoman?
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Councilman Mitchell?
I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. A is what we would separate. B is already separated just for the fact it's B. But are we talking about, there's two things in A. It's talking about the $1.5 million, and then it's also talking about the page 69 of the general pay plan. Those are the two things we're wanting to separate.
Yes, but the other one that she was referring to in B.
B
Yeah.
has two topics as well.
I
One
see.
about
Sure.
artists and one about pay.
The tip. Okay, I see that. Okay, so we're talking about separating both.
Yeah, so they're in, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There will, that is if a motion and second, as well as passage of votes occurs this evening, they would be separated to vote on separately, yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Gilbert, for pointing that out. All right, that is the last item on strategic planning. Is there any other topics? Mr. Attorney, do we need an attorney-client today?
If y'all wish to discuss any other items that are pending or current legislative matters, yes, we can deal with it.
Let's go ahead and do it just a few minutes, Phil, at the very end of this, if that is okay.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Councilwoman, you put your hand down. I see no other hands. If there's no business to be brought before the strategic planning meeting, we will adjourn this meeting and go into attorney-client. We'll see everybody back in a minute.